All right, welcome back to the Ross Report, everybody. We're so pleased to have in studio with us candidate for State Representative District 31, Jim Dore. Jim, welcome to the Ross Report.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm
Oh, let
excited
me
to be
tell
here.
you've been around. I know. I've been seeing you at a lot of the meetings that I've been going to. So you've been campaigning hard. Tell us. Let's tell the listeners a little bit about you who don't know anything about you. So about
Sure.
your background, where you're from, your business background, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks, and welcome to all your listeners for sure, and for taking some time out to hear a little bit about me. I grew up in the oil and gas industry. Actually, grew up in New Orleans. My parents are from New Iberia, but for lack of work, moved to the New Orleans area. So we moved there in early or late 1950s. Of course, later on, I met my wife Gail, and we moved here in 1989. But I started out in the oil and gas industry in 1973. I was 17 years of age and working along with my brother with Global Industries. And it was in 1989 that he asked me to come here to be involved more in operations. And the rest, as I say, is history. So,
Yeah, I think people know that company very well.
yeah, we've done, God's been good to us. The oil and gas industry has been really good to us. And Gail and I have had an opportunity to travel the world over and now back here because of our grandchildren, frankly, and that's why it made it easy for me to run. When I look at my youngsters running around my backyard, and I see what's happening right now in our business climate, it's about their futures and all of our grandchildren's and children's futures. So,
Well, I was reading that headline, "Why Cutting Taxes Won't Work in Louisiana," and it just irritated the heck out of me because, if you don't get the budget right, cutting taxes doesn't work if you don't get the budget right. Do you see that as would that be a top priority for you? Right sizing the budget, you think?
well, I actually handed you a sheet of paper just a moment ago, and
That's
right
why
in the
I'm
center
asking
says
this.
balanced budget. And
Yeah.
in fact, if you look below that, it says cost
Cost containment.
containment review. So absolutely, in business and in life with our own checkbooks, right? We can't just say that we're gonna stop receiving money and still live the lifestyle that we have. You have to have income to offset that. So that's going to be quite important.
Absolutely. Tim, go ahead. You're on the Ross Report with Jim Dore.
Mr. Dore, I got a question for you. Why does the NRA give you an F on gun rights questions?
Tim, that's a great question. Boy, I couldn't wait for someone to ask me that question. Actually, I'm a B. And here's what had happened with that. I went down each and every question, and unlike quite a few people, I think very, very hard about what I say, what I do, and who I stand for. And in fact, Gail and I both have we both have concealed weapons permits. So, and we hunt, we fish, so we do all that. But there was a question that had to do with safety for me. I'm in oil and gas. We have what's called lockout tagout. Are you familiar with that term, Tim?
I worked in the Cullen plant for a while.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So what you do with lockout tagout, as you know, is if there's any danger of someone, say, turning on your light switch while you're working on your fan, that you want to make sure that they don't do that. So the question was, do I believe in locking guns? And I think it was mandatory. So they didn't give me any wiggle room. So I said yes, and here's why. Because I have grandchildren, and I worry and fear for my grandchildren and yours. I don't want any child have any access to a gun, no matter what that is. So I got dinged for it, and they first gave me a B till we had a discussion. And then, they gave me enough. Then after our discussion with Virginia, they then gave me a B. So if you go on the internet, I'm a B.
So just on that one question, they hit you?
Well, there was another one that we had a debate over, and I forget which one it was now, but that was a primary one.
Yeah. Okay. Tim, does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, kind of, sort of. But the F says that he's anti-gun and has sponsored legislation or sponsors anti-gun legislation. So,
well, I can't sponsor legislation, Tim. I've never been in office.
Well, that answers part of my question. That's what confused me. I thought you had
No.
voted against something or.
No, of course not.
All right. Then.
So
No, I've never
actually,
been in
Tim,
office.
it says that he passed legislation.
It doesn't say pass legislation. It says would sponsor legislation.
Would sponsor.
No, that's
Oh, that's
well,
a perspective.
That's a hypothetical.
Really.
I mean, how do you?
You can't answer a hypothetical, no. But Tim, I'm glad you did bring that up, Tim.
Me
'cause
too.
there
I am, because it's something that I've been waiting to be able to talk about, and you brought it and let me at least address it publicly, and for that, Tim, I'm very thankful.
All
Well,
right.
thank you and good luck, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks,
sir.
Tim. Appreciate that. All right, so yeah, that's there. some of the special interest groups can be very narrow in their evaluation of candidates. I've seen it personally.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But here's the thing for me, Carol, is, I don't, if there's anything your listeners are going to learn from this, I don't check boxes for the sake of checking a box. I take a stand for what I believe in. And in this particular case, I believe in safety for children. And that's why I did not check that box.
Well, it seems commonsensical to me. But anyway, let's get back to the budget, because the budget, I think, is the thing that really concerns most people, and the way our money is being spent. How do you propose to go about cost containment?
Well, the first thing, I think as in business, what we have to do is take a look at what the budget currently is. And then we have to look at the needs and the wants. And then, because I don't have the background and understanding and knowing firsthand the Constitution, I don't know what we can change and what we can't possibly change. But those things that we can, I think we have to look at those, prioritize what the issues are, and place some money where it's needed, not just wanted, and where I've seen things happen in places like Westwego, Louisiana.
No, you bet. Speaking of John Hilario, a lot of conservative House members apparently are running for Senate, and they feel that the Senate may change significantly. But the same thing is happening in the House. It seems to me that there are a lot of conservative people running for the House as well, and so we'll have a better shot maybe of getting some of those reforms through. What type of reforms, specific reforms, would you want to put in?
Well, the first one for me is when we take a look at, it's all about schools and education for me. And Carol, if we don't have better schools and move ourselves from, 49? In fact, we're 50 in the nation. If anybody is sickened by that, I don't know why. But if we don't have better schools, we will never attract better business. People are going to Texas because they have great schools. People are going to Florida, they have great schools. We simply don't. So we have to work very hard on making sure that we have and can create a better workforce where people want to come.
What about our tax structure? What in our tax structure would you change in order to make us more competitive? You mentioned Florida and Texas.
Yeah.
Neither one of them have a personal income tax.
Correct. They don't. And so why aren't we looking at best practices? Why are we not looking at the neighboring states, those that are successful? And why aren't we taking and learning from that is beyond me. It's mind-boggling that we don't have task force set up to really concentrate and focus on those things. And that's really what's going to be important to me in the legislature, for sure.
Yeah, infrastructure is also a big deal. In your opinion, what are the key things, especially in Acadiana? We have some critical needs here that have not been addressed. What would you consider would be critical needs in your opinion?
Well,
in terms of infrastructure.
Well, yeah. Well, let's take a look at infrastructure because it's a big word. People always relate and refer to infrastructure as highways and bridges, which are key to commerce here. So we have to really focus on that. Number one, for sure, we have to do that. Because I've been working with and talking to cane farmers and rice farmers and crawfish farmers, right? And the problem that they really didn't think about was if a small bridge goes out in their area, that means a delayed delivery of their product. Say for sugarcane, for example, they have like 48 hours to cut it and get it and have it processed. So if you have a delay or a lengthy delay, that affects their whole processing.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept because while people use the major highways, those smaller farm-to-market roads, like they like to call them,
that's right,
are critical for those folks.
They're very critical for them. And then, break it down a little bit further because I'm one of those kind of guys. I want to look at the what ifs and what ifs and what ifs and what ifs. So what if you have that? Then, of course, now you have a group of people standing in the fields waiting for the next load to be moved because they're having a backlog of it. So now you have people who can't really make the money that they should. So we have to look at these things in greater details. And what I don't think we do well as a state, we don't look at the consequences of our own legislation. We don't look at the what ifs and who's it going to affect and how is it going to affect them. So we have to do a better job of that in the legislature.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite things. Tax policies have consequences. Everything that is done at the state and local level too has consequences.
Every one of those do. And then everything from healthcare to the grocery stores here to your restaurants that we have. They're all affected not just by tax consequences, but if I want to go on to my big soapbox, and that's what's happening with the lawsuits, both the legacy lawsuits.
Okay, hold on to that.
And all that. I mean, if we're going to get there, let me go there because I'm passionate about too.
We're going to take a break and we'll come back with the legacy lawsuits because I think a lot of people are passionate about that. We haven't seemed to be able to get anything done about it, but We'll be right back with Jim Dore, candidate for State Representative District 31. Don't go away. 232-1542 if you have a question for Mr. Dore. All right, welcome back to the Ross Report. Pleased to have with us in studio Mr. Jim Dore, who's candidate for State Representative District 31. So we were just getting into everybody's favorite whipping boy, the legacy lawsuits, which I am told are can't even hold the candle to the coastal restoration lawsuits that are coming down the pike. So, Jim, I know you have some personal experience with some of this and knowledge about legacy lawsuits. How do you plan to rein those in? It's kind of difficult, but how do you plan
Well,
to
here's
do
an
it?
interesting story for you.
Uh-oh.
I never shared this, really. I actually had a visit. One of the first people I went to see in Baton Rouge was Jay Darden. And I asked Mr. Darden, I said, listen, can I ask you a question? You know, I don't know that I'll be able to see the governor, but what does it deal with the legacy lawsuits? And he said, well, you know, I had told the governor that really isn't something we should do. And I said, I understand that. So when is he going to take his foot off our throats? Can you give us any idea if he ever will? And he said, Jim, I can't answer that question. So the fact of the matter is, you know, I think that we're going to be faced with this, at least if we throughout this administration, and hopefully, you know, when I was there, when Ralph Abraham had a document and threw it at the governor's feet. So I'm hoping that changes almost immediately when we get either of our Republicans in office.
Yes.
But these lawsuits, people don't recognize, Carol, that the umbrella effect, if you will, or the mushroom effect that happens. And by that I mean, I've spoken to restaurants whose the first thing that goes are expense accounts. I've spoken to small groceries who are actually selling to boat owners and shipping things out. Their revenue cut in half. I even had a tire repair place. This is an interesting one. When the gentleman went in to get his tires repaired, they said, you need your brakes fixed. You need to do some work. And the young man told him, he said, look, I lost my job in oil and gas, and I really can't afford to fix my brakes right now. And that was one of those OMG moments, right? So now you're going to go back onto the streets. And a lot of this is the effect of what's happening with the layoffs we've seen in oil and gas. So it saddens me, and it's my industry. It's one I grew up in. I've got a passion for it, and I love it. And that's one you could bet your bottom dollar I'll be fighting hard for.
The ripple effect that many people don't understand, it affects virtually every aspect of life in Acadiana, that ripple effect. And I can tell you, you know, with, and this is not state government, but local government focusing so much on arts and culture. Well, who supports arts and culture? People with discretionary funds. And that means a lot of oil companies who employed people, you know, who made very good salaries and supported arts and culture in this community. And now they've had to rein in, as you said, their discretionary spending. They just don't have it.
It's all pulled in. And what scares me is that, you know, that we're going to begin losing a lot of our culture. You know, a lot of these people that I'm talking to are locally owned businesses.
Yes.
And I'm fearful that we're going to begin seeing some of these businesses, actually losing the business itself. I've had some operators I've visited with, and they were ready to have a deal to consolidate. When the investor found out that there was a risk of a lawsuit, they determined that it wasn't in their best interest to continue forward. So now we have 3 small operators out there still working on a shoestring budget, and you know what next? Maybe who knows? If they go belly up, now we have more unemployed people. We have more idle iron that's out there in the Gulf of Mexico.
I mean, you can just look down Highway 90 where all those billboards are with the attorneys on them, and look at the number of closed businesses or scaled back.
That's a segue into my next part of this, and that was going to be, I talk with CEOs quite a bit. Actually, that's what I do now, and young man has 18 dump trucks, and his insurance rates are so high. He said, I'm third generation, and I may be the last because I cannot continue to pay and move forward the pass on the rates to my customers because we're at a point of no return. So I may end up having to close the business, and I'm contemplating that now. Now, that's a scary proposition.
Tragic. It's tragic.
It is tragic.
A family business like that having to close. And one of the things I've seen is using tax policy to favor one group over another. I want your opinion on fairness and tax policy. For instance, TIF districts that maybe, trying to bring a big box store in, but what that does to the local mom and pops.
Yes. You see, here's the thing that I'm not sure if this is something the legislature can do. I don't know if it can, but this is my pipe dream. And that would be, look, if we're going to incentivize large companies to come here and have, for example, I guess our ITEP programs and the like. Why can't we do something for existing businesses that are here that are struggling? I don't know if there's an answer to that. I'd like to research that, but I don't want to lose any more businesses that we have here in the Acadiana area because they can't afford the tax base that we have, and are suffering because of the losses of the economy that we have. That our great governor says we have a wonderful economy. Right?
Well, we're down to the wire. Jim, give your closing argument and where people can get in touch with you and how they can support you.
Well, again, thanks for having me on the show. This is greatly appreciated. You got me to answer. I was able to answer at least one very crucial question on the gun control issue. So I thank Tim for that question, and I'm glad to answer it. That's who I stand for. I stand for what I believe in. Is evidenced by that. They can reach me on my Facebook page at Jim Dore 2019 through Facebook, or heck, if you just want to call me, I'm at 519-7070, and I'd appreciate your vote on Saturday.
That's 337. That's
519-7070.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you coming
me.
in. Jim Dore, candidate for District 31 State Representative. So you folks in District 31, you got a big choice to make. 4 candidates over there. Good luck to you guys, and good luck, Jim. Thanks for coming in. All right, we're coming back. Next hour, we'll be with David Stanley at Police Association of Lafayette and Bridget Dugas of Lafayette Police Department talking about the new pay plan they want to go into effect to help to, adequately compensate and, of course, provide promotion, adequate promotion and fair promotion for those in the police department. So don't go away. Coming right up after the news, the traffic, the weather on the Ross Report.